Let's get started with a Tychus guide. All right, first off, Tychus has been pretty meta since the rework, and for good reason. His minigun is OP. Anytime somebody early picks a Diablo, you want to pick a Tychus. If you pick a Diablo, you want to ban a Tychus. If you're in this situation where you're going against a Stitches, a Diablo, a Murden, Tychus is really good. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of the level 4s because that's really important. But overall, minigun is amazing. It's one of the best abilities in the game, or traits in the game, mostly due to because it's a tank buster. So we'll talk about these things. Grenade has been buffed. Overkill has a lot of cool things. And then, of course, you have some mobility with run and gun. So level 1, look, when this first got reworked, grenade build was really OP. It's still the go-to build, but it's not always a necessary guarantee that you have to. However, it's just really good. This increases frag grenade damage by 10% and its range by 50%. Having the extra range means that you can do a lot of cool things with this, and we need to talk about what some of those are. All right, so you're blowing up a tank, and let's say there's a Brightwing on the other team, who's a very popular character. You have 4.5 auto attack range, or 5 auto range, whatever they gave Tychus lately. So you can fall into the category of, or is it 4? I don't even know anymore. So you fall into the category now if you're already close range. Most of the time a healer is within range, but they're out of range of your grenade. While doing grenade for extra damage on a tank is good, it's also really good for interrupting abilities. Brightwing at level 1 has a Z talent which gives bonus % healing on the target she Z's onto, which when it comes to Diablo, it means more healing than almost every other character in the game. So what you can do is you can look for that Brightwing, melt this guy down, melt a tank down, W the Brightwing. You have somebody with a channeled ability, W them. You have anybody that you can interrupt and use a basic ability to interrupt a very powerful ability. It's something that you can't underestimate. It's good for sniping kills, it's good for confirming kills, and a lot of other things because of the bonus damage, but there's a lot of tricks that you can do to interrupt stuff. Think first, we all know it can do damage. But when you get into a game and you start looking at characters on the other team, it's like, what can I interrupt since I have extra range and I'm already short range, which means I'm closer to the enemy team than a normal ranged hero, and now what can I reach? Those are things that you have to think about. And for that reason, quarterback is really good. Press the advantage can be okay, I think, in the situation that you're playing against a lot of heavy melee and you don't necessarily want to be close range, but at the same time, Tychus kind of shreds a bunch of melee. Press the advantage, I think, is just really good in general. But because of the grenade build that you can go into, now this goes into level 7 and more importantly level 16. So if you have some foresight, you can go quarterback, but you can also go press the advantage, and I'll kind of touch up on those at the end because we're focusing primarily on the quarterback build. Now there's 2 talents here. If you're going Master Assassin, you are 100% trolling. Do not go this. You will be trolling, I guarantee you. The fact that you have to get 15 takedowns to get this, and you get the passive, you play this in quick match. Do not play this anywhere else, and even in quick match is really bad. So in the rhythm, and the bigger they are, when do you pick one over the other? This is the most common question you have for any Tychus player, anybody wanting to learn Tychus. The bigger they are, primarily used against big, beefy frontliners. Diablo, Murden, Stitches, maybe Cho'Gall. This is really good versus those heroes that are going to engage and not really have much in the way of disengage. Diablo has to either engage or disengage. He doesn't have a whole lot. He can counter engage against certain tanks, but overall, ripping a Diablo apart, amazing. You do not want to go in the rhythm against a Diablo because getting him down means that you can now help burst that damage down, which is where Grenade can come in. And we'll talk about that especially post 16, but then it also creates a kill target for your team that otherwise doesn't exist. Against heroes like Nubarak and Garrosh, heroes that have lower health pool but different mechanics based around armor or other things, in the rhythm now becomes better. Now, in the rhythm is good no matter what. The bigger they are, can actually be bad in a certain situation. If I'm going with like a taunt variant, the bigger they are is really good. I want to get that person down as fast as possible because I only have a small window of time. If anybody's standing there letting you just get in the rhythm stacks for a long time, you're either really good or they're really bad. Most of the time, you're playing against people that are your skill level and hopefully don't just stand there unless they're really bad. So you have to decide on which one is better. in the rhythm is really good when you're facing 2 to 3 melee. Normally you have 2, but if you're playing against a couple of low health ones, then go in the rhythm. Like let's say you're playing against a standard Johanna. That's another thing. In the rhythm versus a Johanna. Johanna is going to look at your minigun, the end of it lights up, you get blinded, and now in the rhythm no longer works. The same trick works for Illidan, is that he'll go the increased duration on his W healing, that procs the healing to 4 seconds so that he can endure blinds and polymorphs and things like that. Same thing for Tychus. If you're going against the heavy blind composition, you'll probably want to go in the rhythm so you get value, because if you go the bigger they are, you just get blinded and now you don't have an ability, and that really sucks. Level 7. A lot of this does go around melting point. You now have pretty decent wave clear. You already had good wave clear as Tychus. I did it in the last video showing you how to wave clear. This just makes it even easier to wave clear. You don't have to do as much micro work. Even then it was relatively simple. So melting point is really good. Enemies hit by frag grenade. Somebody did remind me, especially for ETC, in the rhythm is good versus ETC because he has lower health, and it's good to go there. But melting point is really good, dealing an additional damage over time, which now makes this, if you look at the base damage, this is 256 level 0 damage. You increase this by 10%. That puts it up to around 200 and let's see, it's 25, almost 26 bonus damage. So you'd be looking at around 280, a little more. So you're looking at around 285 at level 1. Then you add melting point on top of it. That's 75 damage over 3 seconds. So you're looking at 350, 360 level, maybe a little more than that, level 1 damage. And the reason that's significant is because this is a relatively short cooldown. It's 10 seconds. It does more damage than a Kael'thas Flame Strike. That's how you can think about that when you go to level 1 and the level 7 talents. It's increased to 100% against minions, monsters, and mercs, which is really good. So melting point is really good for doing a lot of burst damage now and hitting that Flame Strike. This is how you can now start to guarantee those kills. Now, when to run Relentless Soldier. If I am going against a heavy melee comp, or even one of those Diablo comps, Relentless Soldier has always been really good for that style of play. If I'm going against a lot of CC, 30 armor will keep me alive more than anything. Now, if I'm playing with an Uther, if I'm playing with a Morales, I don't necessarily need the armor because they give armor. But if I'm playing against, or playing with almost every other healer in the game, and I know that the odds of me being CC'd are really high, if you are dead, you do 0 damage. Always remember that. It's like World of Warcraft. If you stand in the fire, it doesn't matter how much DPS you do if you're dead, because then you don't do any more damage. Relentless Soldier, the same thing. I'd rather give up an extra 75 damage over time, and the wave clear part doesn't really matter as much because you have different options for it, and you shouldn't be the primary wave clear. So staying alive means that you can do a lot more, and 30 armor can help you do that. It's really strong. Combat Tactician, only if you're going into some weird meme in the rhythm build with press the advantage or dash, and you're really out here doing some memes. Level 10, Commandeer Odin versus Draken Laser Drill. Commandeer Odin, I would say you want to pick 90% of the time. This is really good on objective maps, and it's good for 2 different reasons. Defending and pushing. Okay, there's no greater tool than pushing and defending with Odin. Not only that, but it's an amazing tool to fight with. Draken Laser Drill is primarily a fight tool, and it's not really good for defending because the enemy team can kill it. Now you don't have any defense tools. They can't really just kill your Odin for free, but they can kill Laser Drill for free. And they're both 100-second cooldown, so there's no advantage there. Draken Laser Drill, I like on maps where you're going to be fighting a lot and you're not necessarily around the objective, but Commandeer Odin allows you to kind of do that same thing. If I'm going against an Illidan, perhaps, Illidan does tend to struggle against ability damage, except for his level 13, but if it's fast, then it doesn't really do anything. So having Draken Laser Drill for certain types of comps can be good defensively, but they're rarely good offensively. The enemy team can just walk away from it. Commandeer Odin, you have incredible auto attack range that does a ton of damage. You have 25 armor. Your basic abilities are incredible. If I'm playing on Battlefield of Eternity, I'll use this to defend the Immortal when it's pushing. If we get this, I'm now going to siege up with Commandeer Odin. It does far more damage than the laser could ever even imagine doing, plus it's great for fighting. Commandeer Odin just has so many potential. I ran into somebody not long ago and they said they're not going to pick Odin because they were defending or they weren't going to use it and it was Battlefield of Eternity. I'm like, why would you not pick this? Like if you're pushing with the objective, you have Odin. If you're defending against the objective, you have Odin. And it does a lot of damage, and it does a lot of zoning, and it's really good. You should pretty much always pick that. Level 13. All of these are good. And there's a couple of tricks. Let's get the simple one out of the way, because if you don't know this one, this is something that's been very common for a long time. That's the stuff. Minigun heals Tychus for 100% of the bonus damage dealt after it expires. How to use that within the rhythm. If you go in the rhythm and that's the stuff, you better have gone Commandeer Odin. So the one trick that's out there is that you can go in the rhythm, you can go that's the stuff. Now, if you have a very long duration, you're up to 8 or 9 seconds on your minigun, but you don't get that heal until minigun is done, just press R. You instantly get whatever healing is there, you break your minigun, and now Commandeer Odin comes out, you get the burst heal, and that's how that works. Okay, that's the very simple part. Although that's the stuff is never really that good. Neosteel coating is amazing. If you're going against a Pyroblast Kel'Thas, you should probably take this 100% of the time. If you're playing against a lot of ability damage or some type of, let's say, Kel'Thazad combo, or something that's going to probably kill you or consume souls, those big ones, that's a no-brainer. But there's a higher level of play to where you can pick this in almost every game that has any type of ability damage, because it does exist. You can get 75 spell armor for 4 seconds, which is ridiculously strong, and you should be playing around that. So Neosteel coating, really good. It's on a 30-second cooldown, which is really short, which means it's really good. You have a 26-second downtime. That's more than enough to get this twice in a fight, but 1 time is all it takes to save your life. When to pick Spray and Pray. Now, I want to talk about this before we get to 16, or right as we get to 16, because a lot of people always ask, what about sizzling attacks? Do you like sizzling attacks? And the answer is no. Why is that? So with Tychus, your general playstyle is to minigun the front target. If they continue to stand there, it's because your team has a ridiculous amount of CC. But any rational person is going to right-click away from you. What happens when you break Tychus's auto attack range? There's no A moving with Tychus, and you're not staying on that target. So how does that work? Well, the very simple way is there's 2 ways to use your overkill. It's one, repositioning. If you're doing single target damage, it's not really any more damage. It's mainly used for repositioning, and you just want to auto attack that target. But if I'm facing a hero that I know I'm going to light up, and let's say it's a Diablo or it's a Stitches, especially a Stitches that has almost no mobility, I'm going to light him up with the bigger they are, rip his health, get him down to about 35%, and now all of a sudden I'm going to Q him. Q is a lot of damage. It does a lot of damage if you can get the full 4-second duration. Now at level 13, I also have the ability to slow them and increase its range. So I'm going to minigun, da-da-da-da-da. And the minute that's done, I'm going to now Q, because they're running away. I can't keep up with them. The minute they start going, I can now Q and start running at them, slowing them down so my team can kill the target that I just completely lit up. And I also have my grenade to knock them, throw it behind them to knock them back into me if the time comes. It's really good. You have to decide on which one is what's necessary for each game, and they all could be necessary in their own way. I always subscribe to the concept of, unless I have a Brightwing that I know I'm going to get spell armor from, if I'm going to die, I'm not going to do any damage. So Neosteel is always a safe bet. That's the stuff I don't really pick it ever. I'd rather just go Spray and Pray, light up the front target, and there. Okay, so that brings up to level 16. Sizzling attacks, don't pick it. It's kind of trolly. You're not going to do anything with this unless it's 5 melee that's just running at you like maniacs, because even if you're spreading damage around, it's not good. And if there's that many, well, let me introduce you to Titan Grenade. Frag Grenade deals bonus damage to heroes equal to 5% of their maximum health. Again, very good versus high health targets, but the big part about this is each enemy hero hit by Frag Grenade reduces its cooldown by 1 second. We already talked about the amount of damage this does with the level 1 and the level 7 talent, about how strong it is. Now, if I hit 2 to 3 targets, we're now looking at an 8 to 7 second cooldown on something that is ridiculously strong and now one of the most powerful abilities in the game. It's also doing a bonus 5% damage. So now this is really good in general, and this is pretty much your go-to pick with grenade build. I do think that there is a time and a place for armor-piercing rounds, but that does come with the assumption that you pick the level 13 talent with Spray and Pray. I want to be able to Q this target, and I want to be able to make sure and hit them. Same thing for like an Illidan. It's really hard. I can sit there and auto, but if he pops evasion, I'm not doing anything, so I can pop my Q, and it's going to do a lot of damage. This hits several times per second or over time, and the fact that his evasion at level 13 does give him some spell armor for a certain amount of charges, it can't quite endure this. So there are moments where I think this is better, or that I know I'm going to be able to track them down, but Titan Grenade, pretty OP. Level 20, same concept. He has a lot of really good choices here. Big red button, amazing, phenomenal. You really can't get much better, mostly because it lasts 50% longer on an ability that's already 23 seconds, and it lasts 50% longer. 30 plus seconds of Odin is really good. 25 armor for 30 seconds. Yeah, sure, why not? Lots of auto attack damage and ridiculous range auto attacks. Why not? Giant AoE abilities for zoning and anybody that's in the area that's going to die. Yeah, sure, why not? Sign me up. Big red button is ridiculous, okay? It's really, really strong. So you have to consider how you play around that. If you did go into laser, this isn't too bad, but you're doing it for a very specific circumstance. So then I would start looking at other things. The same thing that I just talked about with the Illidan. If I'm going Q build, it's for a very specific situation. Reduce overkill's cooldown by 5 seconds, which it's 12 seconds. If it lasts for 4 seconds, that means it's a 7-second downtime, which means that if it's a 7-second downtime, and now I reduce it by 5 seconds, if I keep up the full duration, I have 2 seconds downtime on an ability that does, 500 something damage over 4 seconds. Not only that, but I get 40 armor. There are ways to cancel this, little tricks you can do. But overall, this is, again, a very niche situation. I don't mind Bob and Weave. I think Bob and Weave can be really good if you're playing against a lot of CC and a lot of combo CC. It allows you to stay alive. But again, big red button, even if you're like, oh, I'm not going to get the extra damage 2.5 seconds later, who cares? You get an extra 13 seconds of one of the craziest abilities in the game, or 12 seconds. One of the craziest abilities in the game. 25 armor, lots of damage, lots of AoE, lots of sieging potential, insane auto attack range. There's almost no reason why you wouldn't go big red button. Okay, that's just the way it is. So that's Tychus in a nutshell. Tychus is good on every single map right now. He's great. His grenade build was really broken. They nerfed it, kind of brought him back down, but he's still very meta. Good against every single tank out there. He's still the tank buster, still the #1. He just has a few extra tools for wave clear, a few extra tools for killing people. And that's Tychus.